Hey everyone, I'm Ari here with Rachel, and we're your hosts for the Merry Writer podcast. This week we're on episode 215, and we're asking, should you write short form stories? Before we dive into the topic, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening if you haven't already. And if you enjoy the show, please share it with friends and feel free to write a review. Okay, so in my opinion, yes is the answer. Short form content is something you should try. Even if your preference or your goal is to write longer forms such as novels, trilogies, series, and things like that. Now, short form, it gives you something to finish. And if you've ever been writing a long novel or a series and you've got stuck in the middle, you know, the idea of finishing something is really useful. If for no other reason, just to kind of give you the motivation to do more. And also, it allows you to showcase something. You know, we're told we should have websites, we should have social media. You need to build an audience before you're published. And how are you supposed to do that? How are people supposed to know how good you are? So having short form content is actually really good. You know, it lets people see your skill sets and your abilities and a little story time. I have been writing for many years, and I always stayed away from short form content, except for poetry when I was younger. Because let's be honest, everybody who get in their youth always seems to write some form of poetry, angsty teenage poetry. Everyone does it, but I did not like short form at all. At least I told myself that. Every time I tried to write short form and short stories, they would balloon into full-length manuscripts or trilogies because I could not contain it in this little small amount of text. However, that did actually change when I had a bizarre random moment and created something short. Now, it wasn't exactly a flash fiction, you know, with a beginning, a middle, and an end like it's supposed to be. It was more like a single scene that if I wanted to, I could expand and explain who these characters were and all this concept. I kind of got the urge to share it on my blog. It's not something I normally do. I think somebody I was talking to on my blog mentioned that they had never seen anything I write. So I kind of felt like, there you are, you can have that. And it did okay. People were quite impressed with it, and they liked that I'd put it up there. I got some criticism, which was good, constructive criticism, which is what you want. It wasn't people being nasty. And then I think that followed maybe a year later, where somebody I didn't even know reached out to me and asked if I wanted to be part of a project and write a flash fiction. As I say, I don't normally do that. And it was a group with like 20 other writers. They had a theme. And for some reason, I decided to do it. I must have been in one of those really good moods. It's like, yeah, I'll try it. And I did it. I put it on my blog, and it connected to whatever the project was. And it brought traffic to my blog, and I got some positive comments. I'll be honest, it gave me a really good confidence boost. And then the next year, I got invited back again, and I wrote another flash fiction called The Dragon. And that was so well received. I got so many people reaching out to me on my blog because they really liked that story. I think it's still one of the best ones I've written. So if I hadn't have done that, if I'd have waited until I released a full-length novel, I would never share anything. Seriously, nothing would have been shared. Nobody would know how I write, what my voice is like or my style. So it can be useful to write short form. And you might be going, well, what is short form? Is it just flash fiction? So I'll just run through a quick few of these. You've got flash fiction, which is usually up to 1,000 words. It could be smaller than that, but, you know, round about up to 1,000 words. Short stories, usually between 5,000 and 10,000 words. Novelettes, which are between 7.5 thousand and 17,000. And then you've got novellas, which most people are more used to, and that sits between your full novel and your short story at between 10,000 and 40,000 words, because usually anything above 50,000 is your full-length novel. You've also got things like poems, sonnets, songs, you know, for anyone who wants to like dabble in that. Or you even have the story in 6 words, which is brilliant if you can write them. I have never managed it, but hey, there are some really good ones out there. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Google it. There are some brilliant stories just with 6 words. That's what we're talking about with short form. It's not just short stories. It's not just flash fiction. There's all sorts of different things, and it's just to get your tone and your style out there. I'm going to stop talking because I have no idea how to segue. Rachel, take it away.
There is actually also a drabble, which I believe is 100 words, or maybe it's a dribble. Maybe the dribble is 100 words and a drabble is like slightly longer. I forget which is which, but there are other forms of short form writing. And the story in 6 words, I believe Ernest Hemingway was the one that originally came up with that. I think he was the one that created the first 6-word story. And it's also known to be one of the saddest stories out there. And I'll reiterate it for you guys right now because it's short and bittersweet, and it is simply baby shoes for sale, never worn. That's all it is. And I did that for a while on my blog where I challenged myself to write 6-word stories. I think like once a month I posted a group of like six-word stories. I probably have those saved somewhere, but it's an interesting writing challenge to give yourself. And it's actually really funny that you weren't a big short form writer back in the day, because I started writing short form because I wanted to finish something. And it wasn't even necessarily getting my work out into the world, which I did. I posted short stories and flash fiction on my blog once a week, and I still do that. But I was writing short form because it felt easier. And it's not easier, but because it was like quote unquote faster, I felt more productive. So even though I'm going on like year 15 for my novel, I still have a crap ton of stories under my belt. And that makes me feel productive, and it motivates me. I love writing short form. I have a flash fiction collection self-published, and I'm working on a short story collection at the time of recording this. And to be brutally honest, I think I actually enjoy writing short form more than I like writing novels. And even though I have plenty of novel ideas, I think short form is brilliant in so many different ways.
I have never heard of a dribble or a drabble. I love that. So yeah, I'm gonna look that up. But that is so cool that there's this other one that I was unaware of. I love it because 100 words is not bad.
Well, it's very similar to the 6-word stories. It's like if you have to write a beginning, middle, and end in 100 words, that's hard. And it's such a great way to tighten your word count and just practice your prose in general, which I'm going to dive into what the benefits of short form writing is. And one of those is tightening your prose, because if you struggle with rambling or over-explaining and you need to practice cutting words, short stories are really an excellent way to do so, because you have to stick within the specific word count. And we've talked about this in previous episodes about how to stretch your word count, how to lower your word count. Short form writing is an excellent way to do that, because you're practicing how to keep those sentences and those scenes, those paragraphs short and sweet. And you're really just sticking to what the reader needs to know to get through the whole story. But also, short form writing allows you to try new genres, because if you mainly write fantasy novels, but you've found a love of romance recently, you can definitely try writing a romance short story and just see how it feels. You don't even have to publish it. You don't need to share it on your blog or anything, but just broaden your horizons a little bit and write something different, write something new. It's still all practice. And also, you can use short form writing to get unstuck or take a break if you're feeling unmotivated with your current project. You can write a short using your characters and throw them into different situations. This will help strengthen the development of your novel in the long run, too. Alternatively, you can find random writing prompts on the internet or just look around you and write something totally different. So it's a great way to get unstuck through writer's block. And if you do decide to use your novel's characters in a short story, you have bonus content for your readers. And you can toss those short stories or poems, 6-word stories, drabbles, whatever, as extras for your email list or just something fun to post on your website. And it's a great marketing tactic. So overall, it's just an excellent way to practice writing and improve your skills and think outside the box when it comes to prose, structure, character development, and everything else that goes into writing creative fiction.
Yeah, I always like it as extra content. The reason I always struggle with short form, and even though I have written short form, and technically the 2 stories that are in the anthologies are short stories. I think the first one was 7,000 words. That was the limit for the writers in that book. And the other one was 10,000 words. So it's around the short story size. I still struggle. Even to this day, I still struggle, because if you write long form, you are always trying to show things. You're always trying to let people know the background behind these characters and the meaning behind things and build the world. And when you're writing short form, a lot of that stuff, you've got to be quick with it. You can do it in one word. You can do it in a line. You can't, wax on with your prose, explaining things or even showing it in dialogue or anything, because you are so limited. And I really, really struggle with that. However, what Rachel said about the extra content, especially if you write short stories with your novel's characters, that way you're not having to create new characters, new worlds, and then try and kind of give the reader information about them in such a tight story. If you've already got the world built and this is an extra, so you put out the novel and then you give them an extra short story that connects with maybe 1 or 2 of the side characters or some back history with the main characters, you don't have to worry as much about character development in the way of like introducing new characters or world building. So if you're ever stuck, that is a brilliant place to start. if you are like me and you struggle with short form, take characters you already know that you've already created, your world that you already know and created, and just pull a little bit out and do a short story with them. I think that's probably the best way to start if you're not sure, than trying to like, oh, how am I going to take this new world I've created and cram it down into like 5,000 words? So that is my suggestion for it.
No, it's true. I cannot tell you how many short stories I have with George and Lila because I just didn't feel like working on the novel, or I got stuck at some point in the novel, but I wanted to keep writing. So I just threw the characters in a random situation, and I actually have probably enough short stories with the two of them to release a short story collection of all of their like random adventures that have nothing to do with the main events of the series. So it really does help. And it's just fun too, because seriously, I feel like these days, it's probably going to be an unpopular opinion. So I don't know, I apologize in advance, but these days I feel like the writing community takes writing so seriously because depending on your goals and your definition of success, everybody is writing to make an extra income. It's a side hustle, or they want to be a full-time author, and that's all well and good, but the main focus is marketing and how to promote yourself and how to get the word out about your book and getting sales and things like that. And I feel like sometimes it's so easy to forget to just sit back and enjoy the journey and just write because you enjoy your characters and you have a love for your creative ideas. You just kind of got to go with the flow. And I think taking characters from your novels and writing short form just to take a break from the main story, but still getting writing. It's just a great way to get the creative juices flowing and just get it out, but just have no ulterior motive for it. But at the same time, you're still practicing and you're still being productive, is what I'm trying to say.
No, I get that. I get that. I'm the same because my Trinity Heart series has been going on for like 20 years. A lot of books in there, just that's why it's so messy. But I used to write short stories where, like, if my characters made a decision and went in one direction, I would sometimes write a couple of scenes and stories of like, well, what if they'd have done that instead? Or what if that character hadn't died? Or what if the character had died? How would they have reacted to that? And I would rewrite like an alternative ending or an alternative storyline just for a little bit. And I don't think they're ever going to go anywhere. I don't think I'd even share those. I think they're more for me. Like, as you said, it's more a practice of like, okay, how am I going to torture my characters today? How am I going to make them feel really, really shitty? Oh, I'll do this. I didn't do it in the actual novel because they're going to hit a different shitty part later, but what if they did this instead? And yeah, there is a push more of like everything has to be marketable. Everything has to be at a charge to get more money, because yeah, you're right, there's a lot of that in the writing community. There's a lot less just writing, and we're not saying you should have, you shouldn't be allowed to market your work or get paid for it, because yeah, a creative should definitely be paid for their stuff. But if everything is just how to make the next book rather than the enjoyment of writing even a little bit, it is a bit sad. Okay, with that said, we've covered out what short form is and the benefits of writing it. All it needs to do is say, go out there and write some short form and let us see it on your website, or not. Either way. But yeah, let's turn it over to you guys. Do you write short form stories? Have you thought about it? Are you going to do it now? Have we inspired you to try something new? That would be good. Let us know your answers in the comments so we can chat about it. And remember, we do release new episodes every Wednesday. Next week, we'll be discussing what to include in character profiles. To ensure you don't miss it, hit the subscribe button on your way out. As always, thanks for listening to the Mary Writer Podcast. We'll see you next week. This podcast is brought to you by Shiny Objects. We are easily distracted. The music titled Inspired is by Kevin MacLeod, licensed under Creative Commons 4.0.